This is an original fan fiction story inspired by the reported August 13th, 2026, The Young and the Restless storyline. It is not a transcript or reproduction of the CBS episode. The real episode reportedly centered on Billy revealing information that could affect Chancellor Industries, while Nick returned to rehab and Victor and Nikki faced fears about their son. Genoa City woke beneath a gray morning sky, but inside the Abbott mansion, Billy Abbott was already preparing for a storm. He stood alone in the living room, staring at an old folder resting on the table. It wasn't impressive. There was no gold seal, no dramatic family crest, just faded papers, an aging signature, and a name that had changed the course of his family's history more times than anyone could count. John Abbott. Billy slowly opened the folder. For several minutes, he said nothing. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "How did we miss this?" The discovery had been sitting in front of everyone for years. A forgotten agreement, a forgotten promise, and possibly a forgotten piece of Chancellor's history. Billy had spent his entire life fighting to prove that he belonged somewhere. First as an Abbott's son, then as a businessman, then as a man who wanted to make his own decisions without being compared to Jack. But now he had something different. Proof. At least, he believed he did. Billy closed the folder. He knew exactly where he had to go. Jack. And Kyle. If they saw what he had found, everything could change. At the Abbott mansion, Jack Abbott was having coffee when Kyle walked into the room. "You're up early," Jack said. Kyle shrugged. "Couldn't sleep." Jack studied his son. "Something on your mind?" Kyle hesitated. "Actually, yes." Before Kyle could explain, the front door opened. Billy walked inside. Jack looked surprised. "Billy?" Billy didn't smile. "We need to talk." Kyle immediately sensed that something was wrong. "About what?" Billy placed the folder on the table. "Chancellor." Jack's expression changed. "What's going on?" Billy opened the folder. "I found something." Kyle leaned closer. "What?" Billy looked from Kyle to Jack. "Something Dad left behind." Jack frowned. "John left a lot of things behind." "Not like this." Billy pulled out the document. "I think Dad may have had an agreement concerning Chancellor Industries." Kyle stared at him. "What kind of agreement?" "The kind that could mean the Abbotts have a much stronger claim to Chancellor than anyone realizes." Silence filled the room. Jack slowly picked up the document. He read it once, then again. Kyle watched his father's face. "What does it say?" Jack didn't answer immediately. Billy did. "It says our family may have ownership rights connected to Chancellor." Kyle blinked. "You're saying the Abbotts could own Chancellor?" Billy nodded. "That's exactly what I'm saying." Jack looked at him sharply. "Or you're interpreting an old document in a way that supports what you want." Billy's jaw tightened. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Assume I'm wrong before you even listen." Jack sighed. "This isn't about whether you're right or wrong. This is about understanding what we're looking at." Billy pointed toward the document. "Then understand it." Kyle took the papers. He examined them carefully. "There's something else." Billy looked at him. "What?" Kyle pointed to a paragraph. "This doesn't automatically transfer ownership." Billy's confidence faltered for half a second. "I know." "Do you?" Kyle continued. "It sounds like there's a condition." Billy nodded. "Exactly." Jack looked between them. "What condition?" Billy took a breath. "That the Abbott heirs could exercise a claim if Chancellor's control ever became separated from the original agreement." Jack stared at the page. "And you believe that condition has been triggered?" Billy smiled faintly. "I don't believe it." He tapped the document. "I know it." Jack wasn't convinced. Billy, this is dangerous territory. Business is always dangerous. Not when you're dealing with family history. Billy's expression hardened. Maybe that's why nobody wanted to look too closely. Across Genoa City, while the Abbott family argued about an old business agreement, another family was dealing with something far more personal. Nick Newman had returned to rehab. The decision had not been easy. Nothing about the situation was easy. The people who loved him wanted to help, but they were beginning to understand something painful. They couldn't make the decision for him. At the facility, Nick sat quietly in a private room. His face looked exhausted. Marie was there too. Her recent crisis had forced both of them to confront consequences neither wanted to face. Nick looked at her. "You shouldn't be here." Marie shook her head. "Neither should you." Nick gave a tired laugh. "Fair enough." Marie looked down. "I didn't think things would get this bad." Nick didn't respond. After a long silence, he said, "Neither did I." Marie looked at him. "Do you think you can stay?" Nick understood the question. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." She nodded. "You have to figure it out for yourself." Nick looked away. Outside the room, a counselor walked past. For the first time in days, Nick wasn't trying to escape the consequences of his choices. He was facing them, and that frightened him more than anything. The Newman Ranch Victor Newman stood beside the window. Nicky was pacing behind him. "How long has he been there?" she asked. Victor turned. "Long enough." Nicky sighed. "I hate this." Victor's voice softened. "So do I. He needs us." Victor nodded. "He needs professional help." Nicky looked at him. "And we're supposed to sit here?" "No." Victor's expression became serious. "We're supposed to support him without taking control of his recovery." Nicky looked away. "That's easier said than done." Victor understood. Nick was his son, a Newman, a man who had survived countless battles. But this wasn't a corporate war. It wasn't a feud. It wasn't something Victor could defeat by making a phone call. There was no enemy to intimidate, no company to purchase, no opponent to destroy. This was different, and Victor hated being powerless. Nicky finally sat down. "I keep thinking about what I could have done differently." Victor sat beside her. "We can't live there. What if I failed him?" "You didn't. What if I should have seen it?" Victor took her hand. "Then we would have done what parents always do." "What?" "Help him now." Nicky looked at Victor. For once there was no argument between them, only fear. Back at the Abbott mansion, Jack had made a decision. "We need legal advice." Billy shook his head. "We don't need someone telling us this document means nothing. We need someone telling us what it actually means." Kyle nodded. "Dad's right." Billy looked at him. "Of course you agree with him." Kyle frowned. "Don't make this personal." "It is personal. Everything is personal with you." Billy stepped forward. "You know what? Maybe that's because every time I try to take control of my own life, somebody tells me I'm making the wrong choice." Jack interrupted. "Enough." Billy stopped. Jack held up the document. "Whatever this means, we handle it carefully." Billy stared at him. "I don't want careful." "What do you want?" Billy answered without hesitation. "I want Chancellor." Kyle looked stunned. Jack's eyes narrowed. "That's not your decision alone." Billy smiled. "Maybe it is." He turned toward the door. Jack called after him. "Billy!" Billy stopped. Jack's voice was calm. "Don't turn this into another war." Billy looked back. "Maybe I didn't start the war." Then he walked away. Kyle turned to Jack. "Do you think he's serious?" Jack looked at the document. "Very." Nick's second chance. At rehab, Nick met with his counselor. The conversation was difficult. You keep saying you're doing this for your family, the counselor said. Nick nodded. I am. But what about yourself? Nick looked confused. I don't understand. If you only want to change because everyone else wants you to, what happens when they're disappointed? Nick was silent. The question hit him harder than he expected. My family has always believed in me. That isn't what I asked. Nick looked down. I don't know. That's okay. The counselor smiled gently. You don't have to know everything today. Nick leaned back. For years he had believed strength meant having answers. Now he was discovering that sometimes strength meant admitting you didn't. Victor makes a difficult call back at the ranch. Victor picked up his phone. Nicky watched him. Who are you calling? Adam. Nicky immediately became concerned. Victor. I need to know what he's doing. Adam isn't the problem. Not yet. Nicky frowned. Victor continued. Nick is away. Adam is still here. Business doesn't stop because our family is in crisis. Nicky understood what Victor meant, but she also knew how complicated the relationship between Nick and Adam could become. I don't want Adam stepping into Nick's place. Victor looked at her. Neither do I. Then promise me. Victor hesitated. Nick has to decide what happens next. Nicky nodded. Exactly. A secret at Crimson Lights. At Crimson Lights, Sharon was trying to keep her emotions under control. She had been through enough emotional turmoil to know that silence could be dangerous. When her phone rang, she glanced at the screen. It was Victor. She answered. Victor, I need to talk. About Nick? Yes. Sharon's expression softened. How is he? He's getting help. That's good. Victor paused. Is it? Sharon understood. Recovery isn't about looking good from the outside. Victor sighed. I know. You have to give him room. Victor's voice became quieter. I don't like room. Sharon smiled faintly. I know. Billy's next move. Billy entered society and immediately saw Kane and Lily. They were talking quietly. Billy approached. Can we talk? Lily looked surprised. Sure. Kane studied Billy. You look like you've got something to say. Billy smiled. I do. He sat down. I found something about Chancellor. Lily's eyes narrowed. What kind of something? An old agreement. Kane leaned forward. And? Billy lowered his voice. It may prove the Abbott family has a legitimate claim. Lily stared at him. Claim to what? Chancellor Industries. Kane's expression changed. You think you can take Chancellor? Billy replied. I don't think. He paused. I'm going to find out. Lily shook her head. Billy, be careful. Why? Because this isn't just business. Kane added, You're walking into a fight with people who won't surrender easily. Billy smiled. Good. Kane stared at him. You actually want a fight. Billy's expression became serious. No. He stood. I want what belongs to my family. Nick faces Marie. Later, Nick found Marie sitting alone. He approached. You okay? Marie looked up. I don't know. Nick sat across from her. I understand. She smiled sadly. Do you? Nick nodded. I think I finally do. Marie looked at him. You came back. I had to. Why? Nick thought for a moment. Because I realized running away wasn't making anything better. Marie nodded. And now? Now I'm trying to stay. She smiled. That's something. Nick looked at her. You should stay too. Marie looked down. I don't know if I can. Nick's answer was simple. Then don't decide everything today. She looked up. Where did you learn that? Nick smiled. Apparently, I'm finally listening to people. The Abbotts faced the truth. At the Abbott mansion, Jack had contacted a lawyer. Kyle sat beside him. Billy entered. Well, Jack looked at him. "The document is real." Billy smiled. "I knew it." "But—" Billy's smile disappeared. "There is a complication." Kyle nodded. "The agreement doesn't give us automatic ownership." Billy's frustration returned. "Then what does it give us?" "A legal basis to investigate the ownership structure." Billy stared at him. "That's all? For now?" Jack leaned forward. "And that's exactly why we need to be careful." Billy shook his head. "You don't understand." "What?" "This is the first real chance I've had to change things." Jack's expression softened. "Billy." "No." Billy looked at his father. "I'm serious. You don't need Chancellor to prove you're an abbot." Billy's eyes became emotional. "Maybe I know that." "Then why?" "Because I've spent years watching everyone else decide where I belong." He looked at the document. "This time, I want to decide." Jack had no immediate answer. Victor and Nikki returned home. Victor and Nikki finally arrived at the Newman Ranch. Victoria was waiting. Claire stood beside her. Nikki immediately asked, "Any news?" Victoria shook her head. "Not yet." Victor walked toward the bar but stopped. He didn't pour a drink. Instead, he turned toward Victoria. "Has Nick called?" "Not since earlier." Nikki's eyes filled with worry. "He needs time." Victoria nodded. "I know." Claire spoke quietly. "Grandma, Dad is getting help." Nikki looked at her granddaughter. "You're right." Claire smiled. "Then we should let him." Victor looked at Claire. For a moment he seemed surprised by her wisdom. "You're becoming quite the Newman." Claire laughed softly. "Is that good?" Victor smiled. "Usually." A message changes everything. Billy was driving through Genoa City when his phone buzzed. He pulled over. The message came from an unknown number. "You don't know the whole story." Billy frowned. Another message arrived. John Abbott wasn't the only person involved. Billy stared at the screen. Then another message. "Ask Jack what happened before Chancellor changed hands." Billy's expression changed. He immediately called Jack. Jack answered. "What is it?" Billy asked. "Dad ever tell you about another agreement involving Chancellor?" There was silence. Billy knew immediately. "Dad?" Jack finally said, "Where did you hear that?" Billy's heart began pounding. "So, there was something." Jack's voice became tense. "Billy, don't do anything until I get there." "Why?" "Because there are things you don't understand." Billy stared through the windshield. "What things?" Jack didn't answer. The call ended. Billy slowly lowered the phone. For the first time, he wondered whether the document he had found wasn't the beginning of the story. Maybe it was the middle. Nick's choice. At the rehab center, Nick sat alone. His phone was on the table. He had several missed calls. He knew his family was worried. But instead of calling them immediately, he took a deep breath. He opened his contacts. He selected Nikki, then stopped. He didn't know what to say. Finally, he pressed call. Nikki answered almost instantly. "Nick?" "Hi, Mom." Her voice softened. "How are you?" Nick hesitated. "I'm here." Nikki closed her eyes. "That's enough." Nick smiled. "I think I'm starting to understand that." Victor stood beside her. "Tell him his father says he's proud of him." Nikki looked at Victor. "He says he's proud of you." Nick became quiet. "Tell Dad." He paused. "Tell him I love him." Victor heard every word. He looked away. Nikki smiled through tears. "He loves you too." Nick ended the call. For the first time that day, he felt slightly lighter. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. But because he had taken one small step forward. Billy's discovery. Billy returned to the Abbott mansion. Jack was waiting. Kyle stood beside him. Billy placed his phone on the table. "Someone contacted me." Jack's face tightened. What did they say? Billy showed him the messages. Jack read them. His expression became increasingly serious. Kyle asked, "What does this mean?" Jack didn't answer. Billy stared at his father. "You know something." Jack slowly sat down. "I know there were negotiations years ago." "With whom?" Jack hesitated. "That's complicated." Billy's voice rose. "Everything is complicated with you." Kyle stepped between them. "Let's calm down." Billy pointed at the document. "I found something that could change our family's future." Then he pointed at Jack. "And now I'm finding out you knew there was more." Jack finally looked at his son. "I didn't know everything." "Then tell me what you know." Jack took a deep breath. "I know John was trying to protect the Abbott family's future." Billy froze. "From whom?" Jack looked toward the window. "That's the question." The final moment's night fell over Genoa City. At the rehab center, Nick looked through the window. At the Newman Ranch, Nicky sat beside Victor. At Society, Lily and Kane discussed Billy's sudden interest in Chancellor. And at the Abbott mansion, Billy stood across from Jack, waiting for the truth. 4 families, 4 battles, and 1 city preparing for another explosion. Billy finally broke the silence. "Who was Dad protecting us from?" Jack looked at him. Before he could answer, the phone rang. Jack answered. "Hello?" His face changed. Billy immediately knew. "What happened?" Jack slowly lowered the phone. "There's been another development." Kyle stepped forward. "What kind?" Jack looked at Billy. "The original Chancellor agreement may not be the only document." Billy's eyes widened. "Where is the other one?" Jack replied, "We don't know." Billy stared at him. "Then we'll find it." Jack shook his head. "Billy, you don't understand." Billy moved closer. "Then make me understand." Jack's voice dropped. "If that second document still exists, it could destroy everything we think we know about Chancellor." Billy looked toward the door. "Then tomorrow, we find it." Jack watched him leave. Kyle turned to his father. "Do you think he can handle this?" Jack looked at the old document. "I don't know." Meanwhile, Nick returned to his room. He placed his phone beside the bed. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about escaping. He was thinking about tomorrow. That was enough. At the Newman Ranch, Victor looked at Nicky. "He's going to make it." Nicky nodded. "We have to believe that." Victor held her hand. "We will." Across town, Billy opened his laptop. The search had begun. He typed one phrase: Chancellor Industries, John Abbott Agreement. The screen loaded. Then something appeared, an old archived record. Billy leaned closer. His eyes widened. There was a second name attached to the agreement, a name he never expected to see. Billy whispered, "No." He reached for his phone. Before he could call anyone, another message appeared. "Stop looking." Billy stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. "You are closer to the truth than your father ever was." Billy's face hardened. He wasn't frightened anymore. He was determined. Because in Genoa City, secrets never stayed buried forever. And on this night, 2 families were standing at the edge of battles they didn't yet understand. Nick was beginning the hardest journey of his life. Billy was beginning the most dangerous business fight of his. Victor and Nicky were learning that love sometimes meant stepping back, and Jack Abbott was facing a secret from the past that could return to destroy the future. The camera would pull away from Genoa City. The lights of the city would shimmer against the darkness. And somewhere, someone holding the missing Chancellor document would make one final phone call. "He's found it." A pause. "Yes." Another pause. "No, Billy Abbott doesn't know the truth yet." The mysterious figure looked down at the old document. then smiled. Let him keep searching. The screen went dark.